Heldon is the florist who has done the flowers in the chapel. Buckingham Palace announced that this morning. And I think what's really lovely actually about the arrangements is that they are incredibly colourful. So in contrast to Harry and Meghan's wedding, they chose mostly white flowers and a lot of green foliage, but there's a lot of autumnal colours in these flowers for Eugenie's wedding. And I understand that that's the kind of theme that she wants running through the wedding, is this autumnal theme. They've chosen a red velvet cake as well, which kind of has that feeling. So the flowers they've chosen are lots of pinks, lots of oranges. There's also trees. There's maple trees going up the steps there, and we're told they're going to be planted in the grounds of Frogmore House afterwards.
What about inside? Now, they're packing quite a few people in. 850 people or so have got to get into the chapel?
They are, and you can definitely tell that. I mean, I was in the chapel before Harry and Meghan got married, and you could see the way the seating had been arranged, and going in again today, you can tell that there are definitely going to be more guests in there. It's a slightly different arrangement. I think what is really lovely about what they're planning to do as well is that they're actually the chapel is divided into two parts. So you've got the choir, which is the front of the chapel, which is where the pews are, and that's obviously fixed seating in the pews. That's where the royal family sit. That's where the closest relatives and friends will sit. And then in the nave, you've got where the chairs are brought in, and they can be arranged in different arrangements. And so the couple are actually going to Eugenie is going to come through the nave with her father and meet Jack halfway. So at the organ screen, which is halfway between the choir and the nave, they're going to stop and they're going to do a little bit of their ceremony there. And so that gives the opportunity for the people who are sitting in the nave to actually really see them up close and not be too far away. And then they'll go through and they will say their vows at the altar, which is obviously where the royal family will be sitting.
We've had a question in from
Okay.
Des Webster. I think it's a question that, to a degree, a lot of people will be asking today. Yeah. Who is Princess Eugenie? So it's sort of, I think it's probably said with tongue in cheek, but for a lot of people, she's not the most well-known of royals.
Totally, and I think that's really interesting. Of course, she is just to make it clear, for a start, she's the Queen's granddaughter. She is Prince Andrew's youngest daughter. Of course, Princess Beatrice is her elder sister. She's a member of the royal family. She is ninth in line to the throne, but obviously, as time goes on, her position is going to go further and further and further down, as if Harry and Meghan have children, of course in the fullness of time, if George and Charlotte and Louis and all of these people have children, then Eugenie is going to get pushed further and further down. So there's basically no chance that she will ever take the throne. And she's not a working member of the royal family, so she doesn't carry out official engagements on behalf of the Queen. She doesn't represent the royal family officially. She doesn't do trips. She's very much a private individual who happens to be related to very senior working members of the royal family. Her father, of course, does do official duties, but she doesn't. And she has, as a result of that, had, relatively quiet upbringing. She went to school in Windsor, and then she went to boarding school, and she went to university. She went to Newcastle University. She managed to have, a bit of time there where she was very much out of the spotlight, and has remained largely out of the spotlight, really, since then. She has taken up a career. She works for an art gallery, a Mayfair-based art gallery, and she and Jack, have pretty much, mostly private life.
Hopefully Des will know who she is now. We've also linked to I suppose, her royal status is a question that's come in from Danielle McGill, who asks who's paying for this wedding.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And it's a question that has been raised a lot in the run-up to this wedding. And, rightly so. And the answer to that is that the royal family is paying for the celebrations, of course, all the things to do with the receptions, the dress, the flowers, the cake, all of that is being paid for by the royal family. But what the public is paying for is the security bills. So you have the security for the royal family is consistently funded by the taxpayer. Buckingham Palace and Scotland Yard are very reluctant to ever go into details of, or they just won't tell you anything basically about security arrangements or how much it costs. But we do consistently foot the bill for their security round the clock. What is interesting about this wedding, and I think where the controversy has arisen, is that because the decision has been made to have a carriage procession, so to bring the wedding out into the streets of Windsor, that also adds an additional element when it comes to security. So as well as the security for the royal family, which you would have anyway here for things like the Garter service, you've got several members of the royal family all in one place. But by bringing this carriage procession out into the streets, you then have a situation where far greater policing is required, road closures. You also have a situation where the police are required to protect the public in a situation like this. So that does inevitably increase the security bill and is the element that has caused a bit of debate.
I should say we are getting a fair number of messages of congratulations to the couple coming into the BBC's Facebook page. As Marilyn Baker sent her congratulations from Australia. Rose Cruz offers her congratulations from Tulsa in Oklahoma. And there's a question from David R. Hines asking, what is the atmosphere like in Windsor today? Well, David, we can probably give you a direct sense of that from some of the people who've gathered here. Hi there.
Hi.
Now, can you tell us your name first of all?
I'm Naomi.
Naomi, can you tell us where you've come from to see this wedding today?
I grew up in Toronto, so my mum came from Toronto and I came from New York.
So you're with your mum, what's your name?
Yes.
Judy Cooperman.
Why did you come all that way for this today?
So Princess Eugenie is my age, and so I've always loved, the history of the royal family and British history. And so it was always really cool, anytime you get a magazine and, you flip through and you see William and you'd see Harry, and I'd go, where's the princess who's my age? Where's the one with the brown hair? And so it was always really cool growing up having that one to identify with. And so it was very cool that sort of everything lined up. And when I found out the date for the wedding, it was always a bucket list thing to go. And so I turned to you and I said, okay, are we actually thinking we should do this? And
you were up for this one.
I was totally up for this. Absolutely.
So you built your whole holiday really around today?
Yes, we have. This was a nice excuse to make a holiday and come to London and come to see the wedding.
And what are you hoping you're going to see today?
I think the carriage moment is just going to be so incredible. I think that moment where you just get to say, this is that history, this is that institution, and again, a carriage and object like that, to see the history and all of the different people through history that have ridden through it, but also get to see Eugenie and get to see, that's her, and have that connecting moment, I think will be really incredible.
You've got a great vantage point here. I think you'll be fun. And can I ask you, now, shouldn't you be at school today? Am I allowed to say that? What's your name?
Simi,
Simi, how old are you?
8.
Now, how have you managed to get the day off school?
Well, my mum told my headmistress, asked her if I could have a day off school.
Brilliant,
And she
well
said
done.
yes.
And what are you hoping to see today?
All the important details.
You should see the princess and the carriage a bit later on this morning. Well, I hope you get a good chance to see it, Simi. Victoria, can I just bring you back round in again? Another question that has come in Sue Wilson asking, why is Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, not here today?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and it was revealed just a few days ago by Buckingham Palace that Camilla actually has other prior engagements. She is carrying out official engagements in Aberdeenshire today. She's visiting 2 schools, so these are official working engagements that members of the royal family do carry out, and she's obviously a senior working royal. Now, these engagements are arranged months in advance. The royal calendar is arranged months in advance. And so there is definitely, an argument that she didn't want to reschedule them, she didn't want to change them, and she wanted to keep those commitments. I think it's an interesting one because they are arrangements in advance, but they can be moved at the last minute, and we do know that. And we also know that while the engagements are arranged very far in advance, usually, for example, the school children wouldn't be told months in advance that she was coming. They would only be told much closer. So it's highly, highly unlikely that those school children were told months ago Camilla's coming, and she would have disappointed them directly if she hadn't turned up. So it's an interesting one. She obviously felt that was a very important commitment to her, and she wanted to do it. But I think in her not attending, it has opened up perhaps a narrative that the royal family probably won't welcome. That is this a snub? People asking that question, why isn't she going? Why didn't she move things so that she could be there? And I do think it's a valid question, and I think it's unfortunate that narrative has inevitably happened as a result of that.
Now, we have been having an eye on the guests arriving, which is a pretty glitzy list. Naomi Campbell, Kate Moss, Demi Moore, Liv Tyler. I mean, by royal standards, it is quite a showbiz wedding.
Yeah, and I think we were predicting some celebrity presence. Obviously, we knew very early on that Robbie Williams and Ada Phil were going to be there. Their daughter is a bridesmaid. We know that Eugenie does have well-known friends. So, for example, she's very good friends with Holly Branson and Sam Branson, so we would expect them to be there. But in terms of sort of A-list, super-duper celebrities like Kate Moss, Naomi Campbell, I'm not sure that we were really necessarily predicting them. And I think it's really interesting to see, actually, there are those relationships there. Clearly, they do know each other potentially well. And I think that's something that can happen with royal weddings, is that you can get a very interesting insight into who people's social circles are, who their friends are. We definitely did with Harry and Meghan, the way that they'd arranged their seating in the chapel. We were able to kind of say, oh, actually, they are clearly very close with that person, and we perhaps didn't realise. And so royal weddings can be a very interesting insight into who it is that these people mix with.
We're getting a lot of messages of congratulations again onto the BBC's Facebook page. Mary McCabe sent her congratulations from South Africa. Walter Esser says, Eugenie has always been my favourite. She is humble and she works. And Rosamond Edwards says, best wishes to Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank. Victoria, someone who I think a lot of us are quite interested to see today is Eugenie's mother,
yes.
Sarah Ferguson, Sarah, Duchess of York. She has been a very controversial figure within the royal family. She'll be here today. There'll be a lot of eyes on her and how she fits into the wider picture of the royal family today.
Definitely. It's really interesting. Yes, I mean, she and Andrew married in 1986, divorced in 1996. Obviously, there have been controversies surrounding that divorce, and very much since. And for a significant amount of time, she really was perceived as a persona non grata when it came to royal occasions. For example, she didn't go to William and Kate's wedding. She was very much outside of royal circles for a significant period of time. But we have seen that stance really soften in recent years. We know that she's been to Balmoral in recent years. She was also at Royal Ascot earlier this year with the Queen. She, of course, went to Harry and Meghan's wedding. And I think that we are seeing that really she is perhaps not fully embraced completely back into the fold, but very much considered part of that wider circle of their lives. And of course, she and Andrew live together, sort of, at the Royal Lodge in Windsor.
It's a sort of happy divorce, isn't it? Yeah.
It's the happiest divorce ever, really. And they purchased a ski chalet together as well. And clearly, they are still very close. And I think one of the things that they have been very successful at doing, whatever you sort of may think about them, is in providing a very kind of secure upbringing for their two children. And that's definitely something that we see, that they are a very secure family unit.
Victoria Murphy, thanks very much. We will get a chance to see them all together in the chapel shortly, and there will be continuing coverage throughout the day of the wedding of Princess Eugenie and Jack Brooksbank.
Thank you, bye.
Brilliant.
Well done.